I was hungry and you fed me. I was thirsty and you gave me drink. I was ill and in prison and you came to visit me. I was naked and you clothed me. These are the words that we are going to hear at the end of the journey, when we are going to be in front of God to be accountable for our lives. Today, as I said to you in the beginning of the Mass, is the feast of Christ the King. And the kingdom that Christ offers us is not a kingdom of military, of weapons, or possessions. It's a kingdom that is based on truth, on justice, on grace, on holiness, on life. Because these are the things that He Himself brought from heaven. He comes from heaven for one reason, to really give us that kingdom that the Father has entrusted to Him, so that we continue to build this kingdom and to make Him known and present in the world by what we do, especially by reaching out to one another. In the first reading today, we hear the prophet Ezekiel. The prophet Ezekiel was the prophet during the exile of Babylon, when the Jewish people, because of their leaders, because of their kings, because of their priests, because of those who are supposed to be in leadership, they really put them into this trouble, because they deny or they forget the covenant that God made with them. And because of this, they now are led into another exile. And there, at the exile, the prophet, inspired by the Spirit of God, speak to the people and say, the Lord has enough of our leaders. He does not want them anymore to shepherd His sheep. In fact, He is going to be the shepherd. He is going to be the one who brings forth back home His sheep who are scattered. Those who are weak, He will drive them slowly. Those who are ill, He will cure. Those who are strong and sleek, He will destroy. Those who does not want to follow His direction. But to the sheep He said, I am going to judge between one another. And that will take us in the gospel today. When Jesus said the parable, when He said that at the end of time, we are going to be judged. And what is the judgment that God is going to do for us? The judgment that is going to be the evaluation of our life that He has entrusted to us on the face of the earth. I was hungry. I was thirsty. I was ill. I was in prison. My dear people, when I look what we do for the sick and for those who are, as we in need in this parish, I am very much appalled. If you go to that room, I mean, now it's empty, but that room was filled with all kinds of food, basket and things that you yourself has brought. The freezers up to the top. There was not even room for more. Why? Because we know that when we go to the table on Thanksgiving, we have something to eat. And if we have that, we want others to have the same. And that is the attitude of a good Christian. But Jesus goes beyond feeding the physical. He is coming from heaven to give us something superior to the physical. And He wants to give us something very dear. How many times, dear people, we live in a home of 4 or 5 or more, and we find ourselves lonely. Because many times there are people there, but they are not listening to us. How many times your son, your daughter, by her actions, she withdraw, and also sometimes with her body language, is tell you something. And instead of let things go and sit and talk and listen, you continue on with what you're doing and ignore that very important time that your son or daughter needs to talk to you. I was hungry for your word of encouragement, and you are not there to give it to me. I was ill and in prison. How many times they want to express themselves, and because we sometimes are so righteous, we want to shut them off. We don't want to let them express themselves. How many times they are naked often of clothes. Sometimes it's true, today the way they dress. But the only thing is this, they are naked of those values. Many times, we look at young people today and say, oh, they are a bunch of alcohol and on drugs and all kinds of things. But dear people, to blame them is to be justifying you. I think all of us are really responsible of our young people. How many times you see our young people are coming from families who really are really not even together. Sometimes they are finding themselves. Sometimes they themselves are in the substance of drugs and alcohol. Many times, they are so loose in what they do. And by that they also set the example for their children to follow. How many times we say to them that they need to do this, and this? Did we teach them? Did we set an example for them? Because no one is going to give from one never received. Many times we blame. Where have you been as a parent? Have you instructed your son, your daughter? Have you taken time to spend time with your daughter as a mother? And as a father with your son, or vice versa, or whatever, or together? Because dear people, these young people need to be clothed. And when they come to the community, when they go to college, when they go to society, they are going to give exactly what they've been given at home. You give me 3 minutes with a child, and I will tell you what kind of a home he comes from. Because he's not going to be different. Sometimes the way they talk, sometimes the way they act, sometimes they don't care. The only thing that concerns is me, what I'm going to get. Don't speak about sacrifice, don't speak about nothing, because they were not taught about it. My dear people, we cannot build tomorrow with this. We blame government. Government has nothing to do. We have to understand, dear people, that we are the builders of tomorrow. We are the ones who are going to really set off tomorrow. And tomorrow will be bright if today we are investing in them. How many times, there are people who are homeless. Homeless because, nobody cares for them. And sometimes, the way they are, because of the way they dress or the way they are, sometimes we ignore them. My dear people, this is the value of the gospel. Jesus is asking us to go beyond the feeding of the mouth, to really reach out to these people, because Christ has entrusted to us a kingdom based on truth. How can a child say the truth when he has to steal to buy his drug? Because that is the way he was taught. How can a child bring peace when there is no peace within him? Because of the substance that he is relying on. How can he say that the child has the grace of God in him? Will never darken the doors of the church and never even study catechism, or somebody said a good word to him, or listen to the message of the gospel. How can we say that young man or that young woman are going to have a great philosophy, that we are people of life? When we are living in a society that contraceptive is all over. And sometimes we do even conceive children and use a contraceptive abortion to kill what we have already done, and evil upon evil. My dear people, we cannot play games with our faith. If we belong to the kingdom of Christ, we have to be really and serious about it. Because Christ is calling us for holiness. Christ is calling us that we one day will be with God. And we cannot be with God if we live a life that is against the value of the gospel.